Okay, I think we've got a fairly small meeting. I am going to record this anyway so that I can share it with parents afterwards. But I think what we'll do is make a start because we want to keep this short and sweet. We know it's the evening time for parents as well. And the plan is for us to give you a very quick, simple whistle-stop tour of Microsoft OneNote and how we use that for teaching, and then a little bit of a guide through Managebac as well. Now, Miss Wallace is with me. Miss Wallace is one of our science teachers at school. I don't think you teach grade 6 this year, do you?
No, I'm the homeroom teacher of 6B though.
Ah, yes.
I don't teach them.
Okay, now the reason I've got Miss Wallace in here as well, specifically, is because Miss Wallace does teach one of my, well, she actually teaches both of my daughters, but one in particular, Kitty, who's in grade 7. And the reason I've done that is because I can then show you what a student sees by logging into my daughter's account, and I can also show you what a parent sees by logging into my parent account for Kitty. So this is going to be based around grade 7, but everything that we show you is identical in grade 6. It's just that if we choose to do if we chose a grade 6 child, I couldn't log in as the parent to be able to show the information and share the information. So without further ado then, Miss Wallace, do you want to share your screen, please, and go onto your Microsoft OneNote and talk parents through what you see as a teacher in OneNote, please?
Yeah, no problem. Can you see it now?
Yeah, we can see yours now, yes.
Okay, so when I log in as a teacher, so this is for my my grade 7 class, my 7A science class. So when I log in, I can see all the students' names down the side who are in that class. So that's really useful because I can then click into anybody's notebook and see what they're working on during the class and after the class. So the main section is the student's notebook, but the other useful sections are, the section here that says content library, this is where I put a copy of everything in. So the students can see it, but they can't edit it. So in their own notebook, they can edit and write and type and stuff, but in the content library, it's just so they can see it. And it's just there as a backup in case something happens to their notebook, and they can just go back into the content library and have a look. So you can see what your children should see is that for every subject, it should be separated by units. So in grade 7 this year, we've already done 3 units. I also have added in a revision section that we did at the start of the year, in an assessment tracker that I don't think every subject has that, but in science they should have that. So if I click into a unit, it's got unit 2, it's a bit longer. At the start of every unit, they should have a unit introduction sheet. So this is introducing the unit. So it'll have their statement of inquiry, what their summative assessment strands are going to be, what they're going to learn in the unit, so the learning objectives, any information about the summative assessment. Now I've just put on that the information will be on Managebac, because that's where we put all the information about the summative assessment. But we usually give them a task sheet as well that they can refer to for that summative assessment. So this should be the start of every unit. And what I usually do is give the students 5-10 minutes to read through this. Sometimes I get them a traffic light to learn the objective. Sometimes I don't. It depends on how well I know the student. If it's a brand new class, I'll get them a traffic light. But I know this class quite well because I taught them last year. But I know what they've already done last year. So sometimes I don't really do that. After that, the lesson should come in chronological order, and there should be listed lesson 1, lesson 2, 3, 4, 5. If I just click onto one of them, so this is my lesson that I did with them. So I've just literally put in my PowerPoint, but it's interactive for them, so they can type in their answers. And I can see that if I go into one of the students' notebooks, and it's live. So as soon as they type something, as long as the internet is up and running, I should be able to see as they type. And I'm just going to go into Kitty's. I'll just show you an example of a student. So it's exactly the same layout in the student section as well as the content library. So I'll just go into Unit 2. So you can see here that she has a unit introduction sheet. She's got all of the lessons. I'll just click into the lesson. And you can see here that Kitty uses a pen, so she can actually write on the device, but it's fine if she types as well. And whenever they are answering a question or they're working in class, they should be doing it in black pen. So you can see here that this was a starter test, so she's in black pen. In the challenge, she's answered in red. It could have been black, so it doesn't really matter. As long as it's not blue, because what blue means is that I've either given her individual feedback or I've given the class feedback, and she's either improved her answer in blue or she's got it correct in blue. So the first word equation here she got correct, but the second one she had to work on it a bit, so she's put her improvement there in blue. And that should be in every single lesson. So every single lesson there should be blue pen. She's done this here as well. And whenever there's blue pen, that means that the teacher has given them feedback or a peer has given them feedback and they've improved their work. If you're looking for teacher marking, so teacher marking will never be in black or blue. That's only for the student. Teacher marking will always be in green or pink. So green for what they've done well and pink for improvements. So I've just went through this lesson. You can see she did some self-assessment at the start. But on this lesson, I marked this for criterion A and gave her some feedback. And there's not that much pink right in there because she did quite well in that. And on these lessons, they can have videos as interactive, so the students can click onto them, play the video directly. I just put them in to help them if they needed it. And then what I usually do, and what she has done here, is I'll get them to go back to whatever their mark is, and she should have responded in blue, which she has done. So anytime you say blue, it's from black or blue, it's from the student, and anytime you say green and pink, it's from the teacher. I'm going through the unit. It'll obviously have all the lessons in order, and then at the end, there's a summative assessment. Now, this summative assessment was on a different app called Assess Prep, so it's not on OneNote. I can show you an example of summative assessment. So if it's like a poster or presentation or something, they will kind of load it onto OneNote, and the teacher can mark that on OneNote. Or they can, sometimes the teacher wants it on Managebac if it's an essay. It's up to the individual teacher. But this one, I got them to put it on OneNote because it's easy for me to mark. And you can see all the feedback here. After they've done the summative assessment, the students then have a unit summary sheet, which is always pink. And this shows the end of the unit. So the students have a reflection lesson where they look at their summative assessment and they go through this pink sheet that asks them what did they learn, what ATL skills did they develop, how did they develop them, why did we do this, how is it useful for the future. And it doesn't necessarily have to be content driven, it could be skills driven. It doesn't always have to be content. And then they put in, they put in their summative assessment grade that they got. So Kitty got an 8 and this did quite well, mostly really well. And then she signs it, so the student signs it, then a parent signs it. There's a bit of communication between the parent, the teacher, and the student. And then this teacher will sign it, so you can see my signature at the bottom there. And that should be the same for every unit. If they have a task sheet for the summative assessment, this is quite a detailed one. The student would read this, and it tells them exactly what I need them to do, how I want them to do it, and there's like a little checklist there that they can use. But every single unit should look like this. Apart from the student section, so I've got a teacher-only section, which the students won't see. So I put things in there that the students don't want to see, that I don't want the students to see, sorry. Maybe it's for the next lesson, so I'll show them when the lesson comes along, but they can't see that. The content library, what I went over before, so that's just copies of these lessons that they can't interact with, but it's there for backup. And then the collaboration space, we use that so students can see and edit and mark each other's work. So in lesson 4, unit 3 here, I've got a page for every student, and they've uploaded some work that I wanted them to do a poster about neurons. And it's useful because we were doing a feedback session on Microsoft Forms, so they gave each other feedback on Microsoft Forms, but they can also give each other feedback on OneNote. They can write, they can type on OneNote, and each other can see that. It's quite good for peer assessment. I don't think I forgot anything. Have I forgot anything, Mr. Comment?
Sorry, I was talking, miss, and I'm on mute. No, I don't think so. I think, we didn't want to make this too in-depth, but I think what parents have got from that, or I hope they've got from that, is a very simple and straightforward overview of what the teacher sees and how the teacher uses it. I think the one other thing just to mention is if you go to, miss, can you just scroll back up to the collaboration section, please? Sorry, the content library. From that content library, just to mention to parents, what a teacher can do is create a document in there, but they can then share that document to each and every student in the class in one click of a button. So when Miss creates her lesson plans or her document or an activity sheet of some description, she can simply click on that sheet and she can share that entire page to all of the students in seconds, which means that the students can always start with the same document from the teacher without having to recreate things or draw things for the sake of it. It saves a lot of time, which means the students can then focus particularly on the quality of what they're putting in, as opposed to simply copying learning objectives or copying out a starter question from the board or something. So it gives them more time to work on the quality of response that they're putting into their work, rather than simply copying from the board or from the textbook. The teacher, as you've seen, can also share videos and things, so it becomes much more interactive than a normal copybook would be. But in essence, it is a copybook. The students simply have a set page for each activity, for each lesson, and it's just like the books that they used to bring home. The only difference is that where you used to ask the student or your child to show you their maths book or their English book or their science book, with this way, everything is available online and you can click in and out of them. And for the students, in fact, actually, what I will do, I will show you the student version now. So I'm just going to take back control of the screen for a moment, miss, and share the screen from here. Okay, so what you can see now, I hope, is the student's version of the book. So what we've got here is Kitty's science book, and it looks very, very similar to what Miss Wallace was just showing you, Unit 1, 2, 3, the assessment and the revision. But the key difference now, as you'll notice, is Kitty only has access to her own page. Miss Wallace, can I just check you're hearing me, because I'm going through two different laptops here?
Yeah.
Okay, so Kitty gets to see everything for her, but she can't see anyone else's. You'll also notice the teacher only section is missing. Content libraries there that was just demonstrated to you, and Kitty can go into any of the pages that you've just been looking at. Here's the summative assessment and the unit summary sheet that you just looked at. So the student has access to everything the teacher has access to and shares with them, but doesn't have access to anything of anyone else's that they're not supposed to have. Okay, so what I'm going to do at that point is pause for a moment and ask if there are any questions regarding OneNote. There's not many of us on the call, so if you have a question regarding OneNote, please feel free to just speak out now.
Hi, Mr. Commons.
Hello there.
I think one of the things that I've been kind of struggling with is how do you get access to, you have to have your child show you the OneNote. We as parents don't have direct access to it, right? Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Now, the unfortunate thing is that with it being a Microsoft platform, it's one user and one sign-in. So we can't change that. We can't overrule it. When I come to Managebac in a moment, I can show you that the parents and the students actually have their own separate logins. But with OneNote, you do have to have your child's login. Now, what I will also say though, I'm showing on the screen here Kitty's science book, but if I drop down the section at the top here, if I drop that down, I can actually see all of Kitty's notebooks in one place. So Kitty only has one email address and one login password. So once you get that from your child, you can go in and look at this. And what I would encourage parents to do wherever they get chance is to maybe log in after the child's gone to bed. Because if you try to log in from two devices at the same time, it corrupts and it doesn't work as well as it should do. So what I would say, in a perfect world, log in with your child, sit and talk to them, go through everything, ask them to explain to you what they're doing, why they're doing it, the grades that they got, and maybe give them some advice and some guidance as a parent. But if you just want to have a look on a regular basis how your child's getting on, there's no difference really with just logging in and seeing this as it used to be to going into their school bag and just taking out their maths book and having a quick flick through it. It's the same process and the same procedure, but you do need their login details to be able to do it. So what I would ask parents to do is not log into it during the school day, because if you try to log into it from your place of work, you will corrupt what your child's seeing inside the classroom and hinder them from being able to take part in the lesson.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I have so many questions about this. I think that's really helpful knowing that where in the content library you get the resources that they are using, because sometimes it can get a bit confusing for us parents to where do we go for when they want to look at resources. So am I correct in assuming that everything that happens in the class is under the content library, the materials that we need?
Yeah, the vast majority of things are. If they're using a physical resource or a demonstration, let's say it's a practical science lesson. Obviously, we don't put those details in the content library. But even then, what most teachers will tend to do, if they run an experiment inside the classroom, they'll run the experiment live. So fire up the Bunsen burner, melt or burn some magnesium or whatever it may be. But what they'll also very often then do is either video that experiment live in the classroom or put a link to a YouTube video that shows the same thing. So even though it might not be the actual experiment they did inside the classroom, you could still see a YouTube video of the very similar experiment that's taking place.
Thank you. And may I ask one last question?
Of course.
Sorry. The unit summary sheet, this one is that you were talking about. The pink sheet. I don't know if I saw that in Kitty's sheet there was signature from parents. Are we supposed to do that? I wasn't sure if we were or not. I don't think I've ever done it. I've ever signed it.
Okay, so parents are supposed to sign these. We do ask that they do. But for some of the students, if they don't have a touchscreen computer, they can sometimes find it easier just to type in the name. And I'll be honest with you, it's difficult for us to track whether you've typed in your name or whether your child simply typed in your name, for the parent signature. It's not easy. But also, Miss Wallace is particularly good at this, and I know if I don't sign one of Kitty's pink sheets, I get an email from her to say that I've not signed that pink sheet and can I please do it to support. She's particularly good at this, and I will be very honest with you and say that not all of our teachers are as sharp at contacting parents over things like this. But what we used to ask in previous years was, if as a parent you're not getting asked to sign these sheets, ask your child where they are and why you're not being asked to sign them. So it's back to that triangle of parent, student, and teacher all asking questions at the appropriate time if they don't feel they're getting the information that they need. So as parents, please do ask teachers where the pink sheets are, or have a look on the OneNote and see if you can see it in the first instance, and see that everything's being filled in and maybe your signature is missing. But if you do have time to go in and have a look, please do sign those sheets.
Thank you very much. That's, for me at least, you answered all my questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from parents on OneNote in particular at this stage? Okay, at that point then, Miss Wallace, thank you very much. Feel free to stay on the call, but equally, I'm aware we're eating into your evening here, so you can equally feel free to log off if you'd like to. What I'm going to do now is stop sharing this page, so just bear with me a moment. Stop sharing that page and revert back to my other device so that I can share this screen and show parents Managebac. Okay, so Managebac works alongside everything that we do in school on the OneNote, and we use both systems. The reason we use both systems is that this one is our record that students can submit essay work through for final summary assessments, but also with Managebac we can actually submit work directly to the IB when it comes to moderation and authorization and external assessment when the students get into grades 9, 10, 11 and 12. So we run the two systems side by side. At the moment, because we are working our way through COVID differences, we've actually started to lean more towards OneNote this year than we did do in previous years, and so there's a little bit less on Managebac than there was in previous years. With Managebac, there are three logins. You have a teacher login, you have a parent login, you have a child login. The most sensible one for you all on this call, obviously, is the parent login. And you see all of the essential information, but what you don't see is all of the lesson detail and information that necessarily sits behind it, because that's all available in the OneNote. Now, when you log on as a parent to Managebac, the first place I would always suggest that you go to is the calendar at the left-hand side. You cannot do any damage as a parent on Managebac. So you can click into any of these sections here. You can flick through things, click on things. You cannot do any damage. The worst thing you could do would be to log out of the system and then need to log back in. It's as simple as that. When you go in and see this calendar then, anything in yellow is an assessment task, usually a summative assessment task. Anything in blue is homework. So I can see at the moment I'm logged into Kitty's, and I can see that Kitty on Monday has some homework that is due. Now I'm looking at the moment at the entire month, so I know she's got some homework that's due on Sunday the 7th here, and the work is science work that's been set by the teacher. If I hover over the information tab, I get more information and more detail about that homework. And what we've tried to do is link the two. So for me as a parent to be able to find this, I know the homework is Unit 3, Lesson 7. So I can now look at the OneNote with my child, with Kitty, look into Unit 3 in Science, look into Lesson 7, and I can find all of the information regarding that homework. You can actually click, I'm not going to do it now because it takes a moment to download, but if I click on that file there, I can download some of the practice questions that would help her with that homework. So as a parent, the calendar is the go-to place in the first point. You can either do a week view or you can do an entire month view. Now, for parents who've got more than one child, up at the left-hand corner here, you can actually switch between your children. You only need one parent login. So if I wanted to, I could look at Lottie's information here. It'll take a moment to load up, and I can see that Lottie's got 2 summative assessments coming up in the next 2 weeks. So again, I can hover over and find the information that Lottie has. So as a parent, you don't need separate logins for each child. You can simply go in and change and select their name here. I'm going to go back into Kitty's for a moment and show you the other particularly useful thing on here. If I go into the academics, what I have now is access first and foremost to all of Kitty's classes, all of the subjects, all of the classes that she is in, all of the different teachers and subjects. At the right hand side here, I have the teachers' names or the heads of department names. At the top of the first page, I have the form tutor, the homeroom tutor, along with the homeroom tutor's email address. And if I click on that, it will bring up my email program, my default email program, to send a message directly to the teacher. Now, at the moment, we are into the second semester. I'm just going to change that for a moment and go back to the first semester, which ended about 2 weeks ago. Because if I scroll down here and look for Kitty's science, we'll stick with science as the common thread running through this. If I go into Kitty's science lesson or science subject folder, what I've got here further down are all of Kitty's assessment scores that she's had for science so far this year. Now, this at the moment is showing me all of the science assessments for term 1, and I can see what semester 1, because Managebac splits it into 2 semesters, September to the end of January and February to the end of the year in June. So at the moment I'm looking for assessments between September and January, but what I can see here is if I hover over, I can see first of all the grade that she got, in this case a 7. I can see that it's in criteria B, and I can see what the assessment was that gave her that score. I can see what she got in the other assessments as well. What I can also see as I scroll down, here we go, these were all homeworks that she submitted, but anything that is graded at the right hand side will have an assessment score. Criterion B, Kitty scored 7 out of 8. Criterion C, she scored 6 out of 8. The number on the right hand side is always the maximum grade available, and the number in blue is the grade that they scored out of the maximum. Now, I'm not going to labour this point, but I can do that for all of Kitty's different subjects. If you try to do that later, just check on this semester very clearly, because if I go into Kitty's semester 2, there are no grades there. And the reason there are no grades is because semester 2 is only a few days old, so there's nothing in there yet. So if you're trying to find how your child's been performing, please have a look and make sure you change the semester. Now, what we do for the students is we put all of the summative assessment data onto Managebac. Some teachers will also add formative assessment data, but what we've specifically required of everybody is that the minimum requirement is that summative data is onto Managebac. Now, as I say, you can't do any harm by clicking in anywhere else. So if I click onto the profile, I can see and check that all of Kitty's information there is accurate. We don't tend to use this section about the Parents Association, but at some point in the future we might well start to use that in a little bit more to keep parents up to date. So that's a very quick tour of Managebac, and I think the best way to learn how to use the system is to go in, to click on things, to have a look around. You cannot do any damage. The 3 key things I would suggest to parents are to be able to change your child's name, to look at the calendar, and to look within the academics how your child is doing, but remember to change that semester. Okay, I'm going to stop at that point and ask if there are any questions regarding Managebac for parents.
Hi, I just wanted to find out, can we be confident that everything that children has done or will do is loaded on Managebac? So it's definitely one point of access to see everything.
Okay, if you'd asked me that question last year, I would have said 100% yes. This year, because of the change, well, because of what the lessons that we learned really during lockdown last year and the distance learning, we've realized that OneNote is actually a much more interactive platform and a much quicker and easier platform for students and teachers to use. So what we're using Managebac for is purely for the summative assessments and the homework. Now, what students and teachers have been told is that, first of all, summative assessment grades must be on Managebac, and second of all, that if a teacher sets homework, it must be on Managebac, and if the homework is not on Managebac at least 3 days in advance of the hand-in date, students do not have to do that homework. Now, that might seem a little bit like a get-out-of-jail-free card for the children, but actually it's a way of ensuring that the teachers are up to date and that they're doing things in a timely manner as well for the students. The reality is we're all learning these platforms. We've got, I think, pretty good at it now. And if you were to say, is everything on Managebac from this point forward? Yes. But if you were to flick back and look through to September, October, November, I think some teachers were a little bit more experienced and a little bit better at it than others. But certainly from now on, everything for a summative, everything for a homework should be on Managebac, and everything else is on OneNote. Any other questions? I can't, if I stop sharing my screen to look if people have got their hand up for a question, I can't also share the Managebac screen at the same time. So if there are any questions, please feel free to just speak up now.
Just how can we be sure that the task which is assigned as a homework has been done? How do we see it?
Okay, so depends on the actual homework. More often than not, the homework will be listed on Managebac, and we do that so that parents can see it. But the actual completion of the homework is usually back in the OneNote. It's akin to when the students had their English copybook and they do some work in class, they take it home, they'd complete their homework inside their copybook and take it back to the teacher. So here we're simply putting it on Managebac so that parents can see it, but the homework is completed in OneNote. So to check in detail, you'd need to go into your child's OneNote for that.
Okay, so there is no status on Managebac about what has been done and not done.
On Managebac, the status is there for summative assessments, but not necessarily for every piece of homework. It depends slightly on the type of homework. If it's an extensive piece of writing, the teacher may well ask for it to be submitted through Managebac because that's more appropriate as a platform to submit a Word document than perhaps through OneNote. But if it's to create a poster or to respond to some questions that the teacher might have asked or to set some questions for a peer, then they would all go through OneNote. So it's not easy for me to give you a blanket answer that everything is on OneNote or everything is on Managebac. We're trying to use the two to best effect, but they do work hand in hand.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other parents' questions?
Just one.
Mhm.
About the dates when they're put up for summative assessments,
Okay.
or summative tasks. Can they be changed? You just said that at least 3 days before a homework is due, it should be put up there. But so also for summative tasks, is it cast in stone? Can it be changed sometimes? That's my only question. That's
okay.
I think that's
Okay. Generally, the summative assessment task will be put up right at the start of the unit, the date-wise. So as you saw on Miss Wallace's OneNote, what the students have is an unit introductory sheet, that orange sheet on the very first page of each unit. And on that unit introduction sheet, there's a date at the bottom of when the summative assessment's going to be. So generally that date is put up 3 or 4 weeks in advance. However, what we also have to be aware of is that sometimes things change through no fault of our own. It might be that we had a webinar a couple of weeks ago that came to us from KHDA, which said that all students had to listen, and it was about energy saving and water saving and turning off the lights and things, but it was compulsory for all students. And it lasted for about 45 minutes, and it took out, I think it was a Tuesday period 3. So anything that had been set for that Tuesday period 3 had to be moved. So there are times when things have to change through unforeseen circumstances, but generally the summative assessments will be put up well in advance. We ask for a minimum of 1 week in advance. And the reason we don't specify more than that is that sometimes a teacher might expect a unit to last for 14 lessons. And although they have all those 14 lessons with the students in the class, some students, some groups progress faster than others. And so what you might find is that one group get through the content for the 14 lessons actually in 12 lessons, where another group takes 16 lessons. Where that's the case, the teacher is able to change the date of the summative, but the expectation is that there's always a minimum of 1 week before any summative, so the students are aware of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, I'm for obvious reasons, then I'm going to stop sharing my screen at that point, and say thank you very much. I think Miss Wallace has actually logged off now, but it is the evening time for her, and she's been teaching all day as well. So I'm going to leave this at that stage. I have recorded this. We've gone a few minutes over. It's 35 minutes rather than 30, but thank you everybody for your time. If you do have additional questions, please feel free to send them in to me on an email, and I will get back to you as quickly as I possibly can. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.